Hey, welcome to episode 30. Yes, we have done 30 episodes now of the Attack the Rack podcast. I think this is a good time to extend a huge thank you to all the guests we've had on the program. And I also want to give a very, very big thank you to everyone that tunes into the podcast. If you have not subscribed yet to the Attack the Rack YouTube channel, take a second to quickly do that. It is a free and no hassle way to support my business venture here in the world of media. After this episode, guys, I'm going to be off for 2 weeks. I'm going to be traveling to London, England. Continue to follow the Attack the Rack YouTube channel while I'm gone, as I will be posting shorts still and probably some video and even just shorts of my trip to London. I am super excited. And then we will dive back into the podcast upon my return. The next episode of the Attack the Rack podcast will come out Monday, May 1. Today, guys, this is going to be a good one. I have two really, really special guests today. These are two of my favorite people in the entire world. Not only are these two guys really good friends of mine, they are also family. Today, I have my cousins Chris Van Hekken and Andy Van Hekken joining the program. We're going to be talking all about baseball today, including talking about the Major League Baseball season that has just gotten underway. There's some pretty big rule changes this season. We're going to talk about those and get Chris and Andy's opinions on the rule changes and how they might affect the game. Both Chris and Andy have really great stories as far as their life in baseball. Chris has been a long time varsity baseball coach here in West Michigan, and Andy Van Hekken, his younger brother, was a third-round draft pick of the Seattle Mariners back in 1998, and then enjoyed a 20-year career in professional baseball. Towards the later years of his career, he had a really nice 6-season stint in the Korean Baseball League with the Nexen Heroes. Super successful there. He has an incredible story, and we're gonna dive into that as well today. Chris and Andy have teamed up to form the Holland Baseball Academy. This is a business where they train youth, high school, college baseball players, getting them better at pitching, fielding, and hitting. I will post a link in the description for this podcast to the Holland Baseball Academy so you can learn more about that. And also, if you are a baseball player, sign up for some of their training sessions. All right, guys, let's get to it. Welcome to the Attack the Rack podcast. I am your host, Kurt Van Hekken, and you are tuning in to the #1 rated podcast on the planet based on the people that rated it #1. The Attack the Rack podcast is brought to you by Get to 2 Media. This episode of the Attack the Rack podcast is brought to you by the Holland Baseball Academy. If you are looking to improve your hitting, fielding, and or pitching skills, you want to be trained by high-level coaching. The Holland Baseball Academy is ran by Chris and Andy Van Hekken. Andy had a successful 20-year professional baseball career, and Chris was a long-time and successful varsity baseball coach in West Michigan. I have posted a link to the Holland Baseball Academy in the description for this podcast. Click on the link to get more information and sign up for lessons today. All right, so today we have Chris Van Hekken and Andy Van Hekken here in the Get to 2 Media studio here for episode 30 already of the Attack the Rack podcast. Today we're talking baseball. Chris, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Kurt.
And Andy, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Excited.
All right, so before we get into, we're going to talk about this kind of upcoming, which is already actually underway now, 2023 Major League Baseball season. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about your individual histories in the game of baseball. Chris, you are the elder statesman here.
Thank you.
Andy and I were, same grade, same age, a few years younger than you. Obviously, your love of baseball had an influence on the both of us. First of all, did you play any other sports growing up, or were you more so just focused on baseball?
Yeah, I played football, basketball, but I stopped playing after my JV year. So I played varsity football and varsity baseball through school. So mainly those three sports.
And how was another Holland High grad on the program today, class of
92.
92. Mm-hmm. How was your baseball team at Holland High School when you played?
So my junior year, we did not win a lot of games. We were young. I think we finished at the bottom, if not at the bottom of the OK Red, which was obviously a tough conference. But my senior year, we actually won the conference. So we were the one Holland baseball team in the history of Holland baseball that actually won a conference championship. So I was on that team.
Funny you bring that up. Yesterday, so I also, as part of the YouTube channel, have been doing a little weight loss journey video series. And yesterday we were filming in the Dutch Dome at Holland High School. And there's banners up there. And it was mentioned, someone noticed the baseball banner.
The years are wrong?
No, there hasn't. The last time there was a district championship was Andy's senior year, my senior year too. I was not a baseball player, but 1998. Oh. So Holland baseball is due.
Yeah, very much. So,
and then Andy, obviously, and myself as well too. We spent a lot of time going and watching Chris play baseball growing up. What was that experience like for you watching your older brother on the baseball field? Do you even remember it? I mean, I feel like we go to those games and a lot of times we'd be just playing, but
yeah, I mean, I remember going to his Little League games and tournaments. I think I weaseled my way into being a bat boy a time or two.
Nice.
But yeah, it was always fun, obviously, being a younger brother. Watching your older brother and his friends play was fun for me. And, like you mentioned, always kind of wanted to follow those footsteps and play baseball. And, and I remember going to high school games. Like you said, they won the conference. It was an exciting year, and they had a good team, and always had a lot of fun, which was fun to watch as well.
Yeah, and we also we play, even though the age gap is about 6 years. We did grow up playing backyard baseball together with our other cousins quite frequently, as every time our family would get together for a birthday party, we'd all be out in the backyard playing baseball.
Yeah, we were a lot of cousins on the Van Hekken side, so it was always we always had a birthday party when one of us had with the whole family. So it was great. But a lot of the cousins had birthdays between March and September. So obviously we had a lot of get-togethers, and then I think we did a lot with our grandparents as well. We had a lot of pool parties because our grandparents had a pool. One of our aunts and uncles had a pool, and then we had a pool as well. So we were always playing those games, and a lot of fun. I do remember we used to always play with those Nerf baseballs. I don't even know if they make those anymore, but those Nerf baseballs. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but one of the things we used to do, or I used to do, is I used to always dunk that in the water before you guys would hit. So the ball was a lot heavier. And then if I got you out and I was going to hit, I would squeeze it so the water.
Why is that not surprising?
Take any little advantage we could, So,
and I guess one other thing I remember growing up in regards to baseball, I did not have a Nintendo growing up, but that was always something when I'd come over to you guys' house. We'd play a lot in Nintendo. I loved the game RBI baseball. Mm-hmm. I know you guys dabbled in some RBI baseball as well, because obviously you had the game, but you guys were way into this other baseball game and still talk about it to this day, and that was Baseball Stars.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was always a fan of stats and keeping track, and RBI baseball was a great game, but it was basically, you play the game and that's it. Like, nothing was recorded. So this game, Baseball Stars, you could have a league, and Chris and I would have a team, and you can name your players, and and you would do a season and keep track of your stats, and so that was always really fun for me. And obviously we were very competitive, and still are if we drag out the Nintendo every once in a while.
The thing that and to add to that a little bit, when you would win a game in that, whether it was against each other or against the computer, because there were like 8 teams and it would just be the two of us having our own team. If you won a game, you won money.
Okay.
And then you could use that money to power up your players. Okay. So maybe your pitcher could throw a little bit harder, your cleanup hitter could hit a little farther, or you guys get a little bit faster or whatever. So the trick was always to try to get all of your players at max, power, so to speak. And so those would be fun games when we got guys. But our dad one time had a team too, and we caught him dabbling with our teams once. So he got banned for a week.
He was cheating.
I wouldn't say he was cheating. He was scouting, we'll say. But we caught him one day, and he got banned for a week. So
well, and speaking of your dad too, and I was thinking about this as as I was prepping for this, and I ended up kind of, I grew up, baseball is my number one sport. And as I got older, it moved more towards basketball. And, I think one of the reasons, I was all into baseball when I was younger is because my dad was into baseball. Mm-hmm. Your dad obviously was into baseball, really great high school baseball player. Mm-hmm. When they were growing up, basketball wasn't really much of a thing. So I think that's probably where the baseball influence came from, was our dads being really, really into baseball. I know my dad was a huge Tigers fan. Mm-hmm. Before, Andy, we kind of get into your baseball story here, there's one other thing that in regards to Chris and in regards to going to watch Chris play baseball. Chris was I don't know if it was his junior or senior, he's a high school baseball player. I'm a youngster in the crowd watching the game. Chris is up to bat. Umpire makes what Chris believed to be a very bad call at the, I think, he called a strike. Chris took the pitch, believing very strongly that it was a ball. Oh. And I believe it was strike 3. So Chris struck out, and he's walking back to the dugout, and he turns to the umpire and has something to say to him. And what he says to him, and Chris, obviously, based on what he said, he thought the ball was low. He yells out to the umpire, "I'm not golfing, buddy." And the reason I bring that up, Chris, is because, a few days later at my next Little League game, I was in a similar situation. I couldn't even tell you if it was a great call or not, but I chose to say those exact same words to the umpire on my way back to the dugout. Nice. After striking out looking, I said to the umpire, "I ain't golfing, buddy." So that great lesson for you young athletes growing up, or you young athletes that are playing right now, you never know who's watching and what kind of influence you
That's
have.
right.
Yeah, I don't remember that, but no, I mean we were competitive. That was probably my senior year, and we had a really good team, obviously, and we were really competitive. And it, and again, the conference was always tight, so it was probably one of those things. And
Yeah.
don't think that I didn't hear about that maybe when I got home later that night. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
So
All right. So Andy has quite an extensive history in the game of baseball. We're going to get Andy back on the program and have an episode, telling his story. But we're going to give a more of a right now. It's just kind of a brief synopsis. Andy, obviously phenomenal high school baseball player, drafted after his senior year. 1998 in the third round by the Seattle Mariners. As I mentioned earlier, Andy and I are in the same class. One of my biggest regrets is quitting baseball. I quit actually after the first week of games my junior year, and regret it to this day because of how incredible that senior season really was. Not only was the team successful, won a district championship, but also just the individual performance that Andy put on. Every game he pitched, there was tons of scouts at. So it was a really cool time, really cool atmosphere, and I regret not being able to be a part of that to this day. Andy, what was that like? Your senior year, every time you pitched, all these, I don't know. I remember, Chris, you were an assistant coach that year.
Yep.
I feel like there was 30 guys with radar guns behind the backstop every time you pitched, Andy. But what was that like? I mean, that seems like that could be a ton of pressure. What was that like for you?
Well, first of all, Kurt, yeah, it is sad that you missed out on an exciting a couple of years there with the baseball team. We could have always used another left-handed arm.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a kind of a crazy year, and I remember the scouts there and even coming over to watch me warm up, and so I feel like I got over if there were any nerves during warm-ups because they were watching me during warm-ups, and you kind of just see that and like, okay, they're there, whatever. And then by the time the game came around, I was able to focus in on what I was trying to do, which was get the guys out and help our guys win. And so after I think the initial time, my first outing maybe, seeing the scouts there, from then on it wasn't a huge deal. I was able to focus, thankfully, on what I was trying to do, so didn't end up affecting me that much, thankfully.
All right, and then as we said, and then that was 1998. I mean, the baseball draft is in June.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget. We had our senior all-night party the night before the draft.
Yeah.
So we got that was an all-night school-sponsored event, and we get home at 5, 6, 7 o'clock, whatever it was in the morning, and go to bed. Well, that's a draft day for you. What was that day like for you?
It was a very odd experience. Yeah, like you said, we had our party, and I remember being at the party and having fun with all the classmates and everything. But there was like a time where I just kind of like went off by myself and started wondering what was going to happen the next day. And it was, life may or may not change quite a bit for me. And but yeah, we got home. I remember a couple of my friends stayed over at our house, and yeah, like you said, we went to bed at whatever it was, 5 in the morning, and I just remember waking up to my dad kind of like shaking me awake with the phone, like, hey, looking at me with the phone, like, with a very excited look on his face. I'm like, kind of shook myself off, like, got myself together to realize what was happening. And yeah, I was the scout from the Mariners who we had talked to quite a bit before the draft, and he had come to see me a few times, and he let me know that the Mariners took me in the third round, and it was just really exciting, obviously, and something, memory obviously I won't forget, and it was a weird day, just based on being asleep, and when normally I would be awake and anticipating. You watch, it's on TV now, the first round, and it's gotten a lot bigger, but back then, it wasn't on TV, it wasn't on the radio or anything, so it was just literally like, they would just call you up and let you know you've been drafted. So, a great memory for me.
Yeah, for sure. And then, like I said, we'll dive a lot more into your baseball career on another episode. But let's kind of fast forward a little bit. You spent a year in the Mariners organization, and then got traded to the Tigers organization. Worked your way up through their system, including a season stop with the West Michigan Whitecaps. Chris, I don't know. I'm sure you remember that season very well. To me, that was such a cool summer. We went not just to the games when Andy pitched, but we followed the Whitecaps that whole season, and pretty much went to almost every home game, whether Andy was pitching or not.
That was a great season. It was I think, and I think Andy would agree with this, but I think that year they had a lot of talent in the league. Not only on Andy's team, he played with a couple of other guys that ended up making up to the majors, but then kind of sprinkled out through the rest of the league, and obviously the big player in that league was Albert Pujols that year, who just looked different from everyone, and the ball sounded different off his bat, and and all those things. He was incredible. But I do remember one of the things that I remember is the one time I saw Andy face him at home, and after the game I said, "Who's this guy?" I mean, everything he hit was off the left center wall, and he goes, "Oh my!" Andy, I just remember Andy's reaction being like, "He's the best player I've ever faced," and obviously, I mean, he had a career unmatched by maybe three guys in the history of Major League Baseball. So,
Andy, what? And you guys had a great team and great pitching staff too that you were part of. I think you ended the season with 16 wins, which at that time was the Whitecaps record. What was that? What was that season like for you?
Yeah, it was obviously, first of all, it was rare that a minor league player gets to play close to home, so everybody was pretty jealous. That I had friends and family showing up every game, and I could drive home whenever I wanted to. And but that was probably one of those seasons that was up there for me. We had a great team, which obviously helped. Anytime you have a great record, it seems to be a lot more fun. So we had a good record, great manager, great coaches, and we had a lot of talented guys on our team. We had Fernando Rodney, Ramon Santiago, Omar Infante came later in the year, Cody Ross. All these guys ended up playing in the big leagues for quite a while. We had, and a lot of us had played the year before together. So when the minor leagues coming up together, it's a lot more fun in the lower levels because everybody's kind of together. There's a bigger group, and as you kind of climb the ladder, some of those guys stop playing or get released or traded or whatever it is. So early on, it's a lot more fun because everybody's a lot more familiar with each other, and the relationships are a little bit closer. So, like Chris said, that league was amazing that year. We had
Adam Dunn was
full host, Adam Dunn, Josh Beckett, who had a shorter career than I would have thought, but he was always the number one prospect, and we kind of came up together, and he took off a lot quicker than the rest of us, and that came up around the same time. But he was really, really good and fun to watch pitch. Jake Peavy was in our league too. And there's been a couple other guys that obviously got to the big leagues. It was a great year. And yeah, I know we're very disappointed we didn't finish with a championship. I think we lost in the first round unexpectedly, but yeah, still overall was one of the best and most fun seasons I had.
Yeah, and one other thing about the Whitecaps too, you were inducted into the West Michigan Whitecaps Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was there for that ceremony. That was an awesome night. I'm sure that was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, just kind of, you know, after being done playing, you kind of look back and over your career and can, you know, not enjoy it or just, you know, look back and say, yeah, that was pretty cool. Because as I was going through my career, I never made a big deal about anything,
Right.
or you know, I was always kind of looking forward to what I need to do to keep playing or where am I going next. But yeah, it was just kind of a cool way to look back on that season, not just for my own accomplishments, but our team. Like I said, we had a great year, and you know, and to see I always enjoy going to the Whitecaps games and seeing some of the people that are still there. So yeah, it's just a good memory.
All right, and then now let's fast forward to you are now a couple seasons later playing AAA for the Toledo Mud Hens, and you get notice that you are getting called up to the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
So it was Labor Day weekend. The night before we had clinched the playoffs, and for those you don't know, Toledo had, it was 2002. I don't think they've made the playoffs since maybe 85.
Holy cow, they didn't make the playoffs?
You'll have to fact check me, but it was something ridiculous. And they that season was the first year of their new stadium downtown, which it's not new anymore, but back then it was the first season. So the stadium was packed. That whole run through August when we were going back and forth about if we were going to make the playoffs or not. We had a great team. But yeah, so I pitched well. I had gotten called up to AAA in mid-July, I think, and done well. And so yeah, the night before we clinched the playoffs, fun night. We celebrated. So I came in early. My parents and my girlfriend, who is now my wife, was in town. We had just had lunch, and they were going to go back home. And yeah, so I walked in, and Bruce Fields, who was my manager with the Whitecaps, was the manager with the Mud Hens at the time, called me into his office and told me the news. Our pitching coach was in there, and yeah, it was obviously very exciting, and he was super happy for me, which you know, made it even better that we had a relationship, you know, with the Whitecaps,
Right.
and then again with the Mud Hens, and he is always and still is my favorite manager that I've ever had, so that was special to me too. But yeah, it was really cool, and so I immediately got on the phone with my wife and like, where are you guys? And we're like, souvenir shop.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? Like, and so I sprinted up there. I didn't tell him what happened, so I sprinted up there and told him I got called up, and obviously we hugged and celebrated. But the funny thing was, she was supposed to leave earlier that day, but since it was Labor Day, they were having a big parade downtown, and all the exits were shut off to the hotel, so she couldn't leave.
Oh,
so
wow.
she had to stay and have lunch with us and stick around. So otherwise, she would have been back at college. And so that was kind of a cool little, you know, random thing that had happened. So yeah.
And Chris, what obviously I'm sure you found out very shortly thereafter. Do you remember how that?
Yeah, I was at home. I think it was the Sunday, maybe of Labor Day, or Saturday or Sunday of Labor Day. My mom called because Andy had to, you know, get his stuff and probably clear out his hotel room or apartment room. He had you're going to Detroit that day, so he ended up going to Detroit that day. So he's got to get all the stuff. And and this is in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have smartphones and all this stuff at the time. So, but yeah, my mom called me and my sister at the same time, or, you know, within a call of each other. I'm sure she called Heather first and then me. No. But anyway, and then we obviously were, you know, telling other relatives and so on and so forth. But I waited a few hours, you know, for Andy to, you know, get his stuff or whatever. And he was headed to Detroit that afternoon, and I called him and said congratulations and talked to him. And, you know, and you know, you're trying to ask him stuff that he doesn't know yet.
Right.
Like, you know, and it's like, this is all new. I mean, you go to the stadium, there's a person there, they pretty much tell you, you know, put your stuff here, this is where you're staying, all that sort of thing. But I do remember part of that conversation, Andy and I were talking about it, and I think he asked me, he's like, well, who do we play next? So I happened to just go, I said, well, let me go to my computer. So I, you know, get on the internet and I go, oh wow, you guys are going to New York this weekend. And he's like, oh, and I said, well, if you pitch this day, let me go through there. And so they had like the pitching rotation up. And I was like, Andy goes, are you kidding me? Like, he didn't even ask. He didn't even say, who am I pitching against? He just, because I paused while I said, well, and I stopped, and Andy goes, are you kidding me? And I said, yeah. I said, if there's no rainouts, you're going against Clemens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we both just kind of laughed, and it was just kind of like, I mean, obviously for him, he's the one doing it, but even for both of us, I mean, this is a guy who we grew up collecting his baseball cards. You know, he had a poster of him in our bedroom, you know, and it's like, I'm pitching against this guy? Like, that's surreal. I mean, that's very surreal. So it's incredible. I mean, this was always the lifelong dream of Andy's, and he worked so hard to get to that point. And I was just, I mean, you're just excited, you know, you're excited and just want to let him enjoy that moment, you know, so.
And before that start at Yankee Stadium against Roger Clemens, there was a home start first against the Cleveland Indians. And I can't remember who called me to tell me that Andy had been called up to the Tigers. It was either my mom or my dad. But I do remember right away them saying, okay, he's pitching this day at home. And I was a college student at the time, and it just happened to fall on the night that I had my human physiology lab. And crazy enough, my sister also was in that same exact lab. And we immediately linked up, went to our professor's office and said, hey, we got something pretty cool here. Our cousin is starting for the Detroit Tigers, you know, whatever night it was. Is there any way we can, you know, flip-flop and go to a different lab? And our professor was like, absolutely. So that was pretty cool.
I showed up for work the next morning because it was over Labor Day weekend. So I think it got moved up on Labor Day.
I think it was Monday morning.
Yeah.
And then
he pitched on Tuesday. So I went into work. So the news broke.
Yeah, that's right. It was super fast. Yeah.
So the news broke like right away. So it's like on, you know, Wood TV8 and all those channels. And it was in the paper, obviously, and so on and so forth. And so I got into work the next day. And the last thing people I always felt like wanted to hear about was, oh, my brother this or my family success. I was going to work. Well, they all know who my brother was anyways at that time. But I mean, people were literally walking out of their offices. They were looking at me at like 8 in the morning, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I work right over here. And they're like, no, your brother's pitching. Why aren't you there? Why aren't you in Detroit? I'm like, oh, we're leaving in a few hours.
Yeah. And I don't know, did you, there was
with the carpool caravan?
The caravan that went from my parents' place.
Yeah. Yeah. We did that. One of the news channels came.
Yeah.
They did an interview with us. And then, and then it's funny, my wife and I and my parents, we were there with your family and then Doug and Karen and their family, their kids and everyone. And then my mom's side of the family was there as well.
Yeah.
So all of her brothers and sisters and all. So anyways, we all caravan down there together. And I remember my dad had just gotten a brand new car. And, we had said, my wife and I would drive, we'll ride with mom and dad. And we're almost to the car. My dad looks over and he just goes, "Chris, you gotta drive." He handed me the keys, and he put his seat back, and I said, "You all right?" Oh, my stomach. So he was so nervous. I mean, he was so nervous. So we ended up. I got to drive his new car all the way to Detroit that night, so it was kind of cool. But
well, and what an incredible night that was. Myself and cousin Mike, we were able to, it was a September game. Tigers weren't very good. Plenty of open seats. Mike and I went right down to the front row behind home plate. And pretty cool moment for myself. I don't remember who was up to bat for the Cleveland Indians. Obviously, Andy was pitching, hit a foul ball straight up and over the backstop. And Scrum went for the ball. I didn't even at first think that I had a shot at getting it, and I was like, "Well, let me give a little bit of effort here." And I just got down on my knees, just reached my arm into the scrum, and came out with the baseball.
Oh, really?
It was awesome. And then I had this adrenaline going, and I stood up on my seat and I put the ball in the air, and behind me going all the way up was 100 people from Holland, Michigan, all just cheering me on.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cool. But Andy, what you're about to pitch your first major league game? Do you remember what your thoughts were before the game as game time is approaching?
I don't really remember much before the game. It was good that the manager, who I've been asked this a lot over the last few years, who the manager was back then.
Luis Pujols.
Yeah, it was Luis Pujols, who everybody's like, huh, I don't remember.
Well, you had him in Double-A, though.
Yeah, so I had him in Double-A as my manager, and Luis was the bench manager to start the year, and they fired Phil Garner early in the year, so Luis took over for the rest of the year. But so I had Luis in Double-A the year before, and our pitching coach was Steve McCaddy, who was also my pitching coach in Double-A the year before. And earlier in the year, before Garner got fired, Luis called him up to the big leagues as well. So I had a great relationship with both of them, so they obviously made that a little easier for me, going not only to the big leagues, but having a brand new coaching staff you're not familiar with. So I was at least able to have some familiarity with them. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember being too nervous before the game. I think I was a little nervous when the game started, because you just never know, and this goes throughout my whole career. You feel good in the bullpen or whatever, but you just don't know what's going to happen out there. So the first batter hit a fly ball, first pitch, right to our right fielder for the first out, and that was kind of like, okay, I got it out in the big leagues. I'm good. Like, they're the same thing as I've always done. I think just that first pitch and him getting out on that first pitch gave me a little bit of I can breathe a little easier. So,
and then incredible game, incredible first outing.
Yeah.
You end up pitching a complete game shutout.
Yeah.
At the time, I don't know if it still stands. It was like the first time a pitcher first game in the big leagues threw a complete game shutout in like 100 years or something like that.
Well, yeah, there's the Tigers was a lot longer, but there was a guy from the A's, I think, who did it in the late 70s as well.
Okay.
So that was always kind of, would hear his name. But yeah, I don't know if it's
been done since.
I don't know.
But yeah, pretty awesome. I mean, I'll never
think
forget
they
that.
let rookies go 9 innings anymore.
True. Yeah, you're right.
One thing that's funny about that, to add, and I don't know if Andy and I ever talked about this, we were waiting for him in the concourse area or whatever outside the locker room, and he came out, and all the Indian players are walking out to.
Oh yeah, we should have mentioned it was against the Cleveland Indians.
Yeah, sorry. And so you're looking at all these guys, and I, Jim Tomei is one of the largest human beings I've ever seen in my life. But Ellis Burks walked by too, and he was on that team, and he's obviously a professional athlete, big guy, and everything. And it hit me at the time that when I was in 9th grade, Andy would have been in 5th grade. Yeah. So we're sitting
younger,
4th grade, going into
3rd
grade.
or 4th. I mean, 6 years.
Yeah. So anyways, our family took a trip to Boston because Andy loved the Red Sox, and we always did trips around our favorite baseball teams. And we're sitting in center field, and Ellis Burks was playing center field, and Andy's in 4th grade. Who would have thought that? At some point later on in life, you'd be pitching against the guy. It's just like I was sitting there, like, wow, this is pretty surreal. This is incredible. So that was kind of an awesome moment. So.
Yeah, and then another awesome moment just a few days later. Yankee Stadium. This is before the new Yankee Stadium, the original Yankee Stadium. And Andy, you get to pitch at Yankee Stadium against the New York Yankees. Pitching that day for the Yankees, Roger Clemens. I was fortunate enough to make the road trip out there. One of the absolute coolest things that I can remember in my life, driving out to New York City, Yankee Stadium, watching my cousin pitch against Roger Clemens. And he pitched really well. Derek Jeter, did he hit a home run that day?
Yeah, Jeter hit a home run. Jason Giambi hit a home run. Thankfully, the Giambi home run was after an error. So it was that was another funny story about the Jeter home run. I think Alfonso Soriano, who was a really good player back in the day, was the leadoff hitter that inning and got him out on the first pitch. So a lot of times the catcher will just be or the hitter will take a pitch. And so my catcher called a fastball right down the middle, which, in normal circumstances never happens unless it's 3-0 and, the guy's not swinging. So I was like, no, I'm not going to throw that pitch. And he's like, just shook his head like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. He's not going to swing. I'm like, okay. And so I threw it right down the middle. Boom, home run. It's like, I was so mad. And my catcher was Matt Walbeck, who caught my first game as well. And that was the only quote-unquote earned run that we gave up together. And he was a phenomenal catcher. And, but it was just kind of a funny moment for me, and I was pretty hot for a moment there.
Yeah, I bet. And then, 7 days later, you're pitching against Roger Clemens again at home. I mean, you also had a home start against the Royals. You also pitched against the Toronto Blue Jays at Toronto. Chris, I don't remember if it was that Royals home game or the Yankees home game. Maybe both. We were obviously at. Mm-hmm. And we had a really a great time in Detroit after the game.
Oh, yeah.
Some fun at the casino.
Oh, yeah.
It was a great time. Andy, also, our cousin Mike and I, we went to Detroit in the middle of a week. Kind of blew off some classes.
How'd you do that? How'd you do that semester at school? You took a road trip?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I got a degree. So.
All right.
And then, it was like the middle of the week. You're playing the Twins. You were not even pitching then. And Mike and I decided we were going to come out to Detroit and hang out with you. And really cool moment for me. Before the game, in fact, second time I got to meet the great Ernie Harwell. I also met him at one of your spring training games in Lakeland. But yeah, that was really cool being able to meet Ernie Harwell. He's one of my favorite people associated with the game of baseball.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more of the Attack the Rack podcast. And welcome back to the Attack the Rack podcast. Real Estate Ryan has been in real estate for over 20 years and can help you with all your real estate needs. Realtor Ryan has helped me in my journey in learning about real estate and he can do the same for you, whether you're looking to buy, sell, or just learn more about real estate in general. Ring Realtor Ryan.
But anyway, Andy, we're going to dive a lot more into your career on another episode. But from there, your last few years, you ended up with, playing for 20 years. The last 6 in South Korea. You want to just talk a little bit about playing baseball, and you played all over the world, but last 6 years found a home in South Korea. What was that like?
It was great. I never would have thought when this started that I'd end up in South Korea for that long or at all, and let alone maybe being some of the best years and most fun I've had, and enjoyable years pitching. So yeah, it was just a nice surprise, and met a lot of great people, a lot of great teammates. A lot of people I still talk to today, and yeah, it's just like I said, it was unexpected turn for me to go there, and it was just a huge blessing. And I'm glad things worked out the way they did. I got to go to the big leagues for a short time. I don't know that I would have traded a whole big league career for what I got to do. It was just a really fun experience for me, and it was awesome, and I was happy the way things turned out, and yeah, that was definitely a highlight of my career going there.
All right, and then I believe after 2018, you retired.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Well, I stopped playing. Yes.
Yeah. And then just a few short years later, now you guys have teamed up and you have created the Holland Baseball Academy, where you guys train young baseball players, youth players, high school players, college players. How did that come about?
Well, I think this was always maybe something that we had thought about for a while. Chris has coached for a very long time and been a great coach, and I obviously had a long playing career, and baseball I thought would always be part of my life, whether I was playing or coaching after I was done. And Chris lived in Grand Haven for a long time, and he and his family decided they were going to move back to Holland in, was that 2020? Yep, right at the end of 2020. And so with that, we started talking about, what I was doing, and, if we wanted to do something like this, and we just kind of started talking about it and looking into some different possibilities, looking at spaces and what was the best route for us to go. And along with that, we were talking about Holland and helping out with Holland High, and talking about the Little League program and how that's been going, and what can we do to help any or both of those, the high school and the Little League. How can we help? Because we want to see Holland baseball and get better, and we want to be proud of the high school team. We want to be helpful any way we can. So we thought by doing this, it would give me something to do. And Chris obviously, like I said, has a big background in coaching, so we thought we could help out by doing some offering lessons. And then I had been working with Mike Paul, who coached and trained me the last 10 years of my career, and helped me, just tremendously to get back to where I thought I should be. So I'd been working with him, and he had a program that I did when I was playing, like a conditioning type program. that was in Grand Rapids, and I thought, it'd be great to bring that to Holland and offer that, so we can get guys here getting into that. Yeah, and just because I think there was kind of a that was missing in this area. Is, lessons are great, and we provide great lessons, but the whole body specific workout that we offer is a huge game changer, I think, and what I've seen from not only myself but all the other guys I've trained with and the kids we've trained. I've seen just really great results. So that was a big reason I think we kind of got into it too, is to have a place to offer that. And
Yeah, I think when Andy and I got together and really talked seriously about it, it was, what can we do to kind of support the baseball community in this area?
Right.
The kids that are really serious, and maybe the parents that have the funds to, drive their kids to Grand Rapids and get training, because that's where you had to go. Like, can we do something locally around here? And then, okay, then that's maybe for a certain group, but then what else can we do for the younger kids and the Little League community and help support the coaches and those parents as well? Because not all the parents can afford to travel or bring their kids to Grand Rapids and pay for lessons and things like that. So we've done a lot of camps and clinics through and with the Holland Little League program already. Just in the last couple of years, we've also run a Sandlot League, which runs a couple of days a week. Once their Little League season is done, we kind of pick up a couple of days a week and we play games. So those usually take about 2 hours on each night. And so what we do is we go through a warm-up procedure with the kids. We show them how to warm up before they play, how to stretch, and then we usually have about a half an hour to 45 minutes of some sort of instruction, whether it's fly balls or ground balls or base running or whatever. We work with them a lot on those things, and then we divide them into teams, and then we play. And Andy and I usually pitch and coach at the same time, and add some structure to it. So, and we enjoy it. I don't know. I might enjoy it more than the kids. I love being out there with them and watching them play. But it's given those kids and those families that want more for their kids, but maybe don't know where to turn or don't know where to go or whatever. It's given them just one more outlet, and it's cool starting to see those kids more and more throughout the year. You can see them improve, and that's what we think, it's going to take to kind of help build baseball back up as a sport in this area. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you love coaching. You love, the coaching aspect of the game. You guys currently both are helping out with the Holland Baseball program, but Chris, you have, quite a lengthy coaching career here in West Michigan, being a head coach as well.
Yep. So yeah, I started out at Grand Haven.
Yeah.
I was 27 years old. I guess you would say they took a flyer on me, took a chance on me, and I'm grateful to them for doing that. But yeah, I love coaching. I had a great experience at Grand Haven. We had some good teams. It's a challenging league, so never having okay, Red. Yeah, real. Every game you're facing a really good pitcher. So, yeah, that had a lot of challenges to it, but never having been a head coach before, that was definitely one way to get started. You learn how far behind you are right away. And especially at the high school level, coaching does have a huge impact on the game. You can control the game in certain ways as a coach. And so we did that. I did that for a while. Enjoyed it, and then our family, my job, took us down to Florida.
Yep.
And so we were down there for a few years, and then when we moved back, I got my wife took a job up in Muskegon at a private school up there, and then after a couple of years, they asked me to come in and coach there as well. So I coached at Western Michigan Christian for 6 years.
Yep.
1 year as an assistant at the beginning, and then that coach stepped down, and then took over that, and that's a completely different set of circumstances than Grand Haven High School.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you go from having 2 fields to practice and
Right.
3 levels, and I barely had enough kids to have a roster.
Yeah, and at Grand Haven, you're probably cutting kids.
Yes. Yeah. And you have all the equipment, and so at Western Michigan Christian, it was a lot more of facilities and getting kids out there to play. But after 4 or 5 years, there were some great things we did. We won a lot of games, and we were ranked for the first time ever.
Wow.
We were ranked for a while, and we did well. And then by the end of it, we had enough support from the school where they now have, as of today, they now have a brand new baseball field at their school.
Okay.
And so that was started by the group and the former athletic director, myself, back in probably 2018.
Okay.
So yeah, we were able to do a lot of things there, so which is good.
All right, and then as I said, both of you guys now are helping out with Holland Baseball. The Holland Baseball Academy, guys, I will post a link to their website here in the description for the podcast, so you can get a little bit more information about the Holland Baseball Academy, and even I believe that's how people can sign up for lessons.
Yep, we'll put camps and clinics and all that up for what we're going to be doing this summer.
All right, guys. So now let's talk a little bit about the 2023 Major League Baseball season. There's some rule changes going on right now in baseball, and before we get into the bigger bases, the no more shift rule, didn't they last year in the minor leagues test out some sort of automated balls and strikes calls or something like that? And that's not going on yet in the major leagues? Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge, no.
No,
Okay.
They did try it out. I think it was at some levels of the minor leagues last year, or at least in some games.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, it's not not in the major leagues yet.
Okay.
But
what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think about something like that?
I guess I'm a traditionalist.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would like it. Obviously, I know it's always, don't you want the accurate call? And yeah, that's nice, but I guess I like the human element a little bit. And but yeah, I don't know. We'll see if it passes. But I don't see them taking umpires completely out of it.
yeah, I don't ever see that happening.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I don't know if it actually takes the umpire out.
It just alerts him whether it's a ball or strike.
To him what to call. Yeah.
Well,
but either way, obviously, it takes his judgment out of it.
Yeah.
So
sometimes when you take the human element out of it, you take the emotion. So if an official, I mean, not that I've ever seen an umpire make a bad call, but when they do, and then they realize it afterwards, and then you've got everybody, yelling at him or whatever, or a guy or a player shows him up, and they feel like, well, this one's going to be a strike no matter what. I mean, you kind of eliminate some of that, which is probably good, but I can't ever see them totally eliminating umpires. So.
Yeah. Well, a couple rule changes that have come into effect, which I'll start first with the bigger bases. That was something they did test in the minors and now have implemented it into Major League Baseball. Bigger bases. How do you guys think that'll affect the game?
I just think, and obviously I think the reason is for player safety.
Yeah.
I would imagine that most injuries are occurring from colliding with the fielder and the base runner, whether it's at first base or second base. There's been a lot of injuries at first base, tripping over first baseman's leg or whatever it is. So I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I don't know that it takes away from anything competitively. So it'll be interesting to see the numbers if those sort of injuries, the double play ball, trying to break it up or whatever. So yeah, I think it's probably a good idea.
And one one thing I think it could affect is it should make stealing bases a little bit easier.
Yeah, there's a rule. Well, even to that point, there's a rule on how many times they can throw over.
Okay.
And so once you get to a certain amount of throwovers, you can't throw over again. Or if you don't get them out, if you don't pick them off, then they get the base anyways.
Okay.
So that's kind of an interesting rule. And so that I think will only benefit the base runner.
Yeah.
More. But I think with the bigger bases, I mean, especially when you're turning double plays, for years it was, you're in the vicinity, so we're just going to call you out. Then the replay came in, and it's like, well, his foot was off the base by a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
So he's safe now. It's like, okay, well, if he would have stayed on the base, he'd be done for the season because his ACL would have gone out on the slide. So I like the bigger bases from that standpoint.
Sure.
If it's going to help, the fielders a little bit more and the base runners to that degree. So.
And then one thing that year after year after year has, baseball games have gotten longer. Pitchers take more time, batters take more time between pitches. I recently watched on YouTube a Tigers game from the 80s. And you really can totally tell the difference back then to now as far as the pace of the game. Batters, they might step out for a second and then they're digging right back in and they're ready to go. So over time, obviously, batters have taken a lot more time. Pitchers have taken more time. And now we have a pitch clock. So there's a limited amount of seconds a pitcher can take between pitches, and then also a clock for the batters.
You got to be in the batter's box within
8
seconds, I think. Yeah.
So, in theory, that should improve the pace of the game. Do you guys like that, though, bringing in a clock? Baseball was the only sport out there where there was no time at all. What do you guys think?
I personally love it.
Okay. Even as a former pitcher,
I think it helps the pitchers more, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
Or not helps them, but
I don't know if it helps or hurts anybody in general, but pitchers are kind of taught to work fast, starters especially, taught to work fast. I feel like a lot of the relievers take their sweet time a lot of times. They're in there, and it's a big situation typically, late in the game, so they want to be, whatever it is, they want to be as prepared as they can. But it would drive me crazy watching, I pitch every 5 games, so I had to watch a lot of baseball games. And there are a lot of relievers that take their time, and it's so slow, and it drove me nuts. And, a lot of the batters, too, take their time as well. And, again, it's their at-bat. A lot of them only get four chances a game. Sure. So they want to make sure they're prepared and feel comfortable or whatever it is. I feel like it has progressively taken more and more time. And, I don't know if all the information now out there is part of that. I think it'll definitely help the game and just hopefully move it along. I was a fan of this when I heard of it.
Yeah, I think spring training, at the end of spring training, there was a statistic that said that it sped those games up from the year before.
Okay.
It was somewhere around 22, 23 minutes a game. So,
that's
it is a lot. I mean, some of the batters, they get out, they got to adjust their gloves, their elbow guard, their jewelry, their helmet, every single pitch.
Right.
And it's like, it always seemed like the Yankee Red Sox games took 6 hours to play, and it's so brutal to watch. But I like the rule. I think it keeps people engaged. I think anything you can do to keep fans engaged, and especially young kids engaged at this point, because you start getting bored and they stop being interested in baseball.
Yes, exactly. And then one rule, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not a fan of, and you guys may disagree. I don't like the new rule change about not being allowed to have your defense shift. So you got a left-handed batter up to left-handed batter. You're shifting your defense, so they're playing you to pull. Not necessarily, you really don't have somebody playing third base. You don't really have someone playing what traditionally would be left field. I kind of feel like strategically wise, you should be able to put your guys wherever you want them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like that. I get it. I get why they do that. But again, at the same time, from an X's and O's standpoint, I feel like you should be able to do that. Play defense that way if that's going to help your team win. I don't know. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, from like a pitcher's perspective, I feel like I was still around when this was kind of newer, and teams were trying it out, and our teams were doing it a little bit, and I was upset with it because we never really practiced. The second baseman being out in shallow right field, fielding a ground ball and trying. He'd be there and you'd field it like normal and make a throw, and the guy was safe. He wasn't used to making the long throw or fielding on grass or whatever it is, and it just felt like they weren't prepared or didn't have enough practice to, the shift worked technically, but they weren't able to finish the play. So there was a lot of errors like that, and I know a lot of people. You hit one where the shortstop would normally be, and pitcher throws his seams up. This is all early. So first started. So, and I know over the course of the season, the shift makes sense for the most part. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I agree. I think, why can't I put my guy in this position? I would have liked to have seen more left-handed hitters learn how to put a bunt down. You have the whole left side of the infield, so you're open. But they keep trying to whatever. So
that was always the thing I couldn't figure out, is that you can have all these left-handed hitters, and it's like, if you know they're going to shift that way, why don't you at least practice? And they would refuse to practice it. They're like, no, this is how I hit. Okay, so then they just ground out to the guy in shallow right field every time, instead of either laying a bunt down or Victor Martinez from the Tigers. That used to drive me crazy. Like, why don't you learn to hit the opposite way? You do that for a week and a half, they won't shift on you anymore. But people just refuse to play that way. But I agree. I like the shift, or I liked the shift because I figured. Baseball is the only sport too where the defense has the ball. So it's like, we should be able to line up where we want to line up. So, in high school, you can play with. I've seen it in a game where it's extra innings or down to the last out, where you have to preserve, a guy on third with less than 2 outs. I've seen, people bring their center fielder in and play over second base. Because if the ball makes it there, the guy's going to score. So. But anyway.
Yeah, obviously this is baseball's way of trying to raise some of the batting averages that have been pretty bad the last few years. And I did see a stat in spring training where it did raise the batting average up a little bit. We'll see what it does over the course of the season. But I don't know. It's an interesting role. We'll see if it sticks.
And speaking of rules, in the game of baseball, there's some unwritten rules, and they seem to, make the headlines here and there throughout every season. One of them is a pitcher's got a no-hitter going, and there's 2 outs in the 9th inning. Pitcher needs 1 more out to get the no-hitter, and a batter ends up bunting in an attempt to reach first base to break up the no-hitter. That is seen as a no-no in the unwritten rule book in baseball. Chris, what do you think about breaking up a no-hitter with a bunt?
In the 9th?
Yes.
No.
Okay.
In the 6th? Yes.
Okay.
6th inning, totally different. 7th inning, And I guess it also depends on the score. If it's a 2-0 game, a 1-0 game, you're in the 6th inning or even the top of the 7th, you get a bunt down. That's whatever. You're doing it. You're down 8-0 in the 9th. Then I just think that's you would never bunt in that situation. I look at it like this: if you're going outside of your normal routine as a coach or as a player to just so you break up a no-hitter and you're still going to lose. Like, I just think that's, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But again, if it's a 1-0 game in the 7th inning, leadoff guy puts a bunt down, it's a 1-0 game. I think that's fair. So.
And Andy, as a pitcher, let's say you've got a no-hitter, 2 outs in the 9th, batter lays down a bunt. What are you thinking?
Yeah,
you throw at him as he's going.
I don't know. I've never been in that situation. But yeah, I would probably be a little perturbed. I'm a little more laid back about all the unwritten rules.
Okay.
I mean, I guess I always figured, if it's first 5 innings or so and you want to punt, I'm not, too concerned about it. But yeah, late as it goes later in the game, it's more of like come on,
yeah,
that's annoying. And I'm more of a competitive, I feel like be a little bit more competitive and try and break up a hit, a no-hitter with a base hit or a double or whatever, instead of trying to, do something out of the ordinary. But yeah, I would probably be a little upset in the 9th inning with a bunt. But I don't think I'd hit the guy the next time.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Next time, are we throwing at him? Well, speaking of throwing at, there's one unwritten rule in baseball where if the batter does this, there's a good chance he'll either get thrown at or a teammate will get thrown at, and that is the bat flip after a home run. I kind of look at that as, I love all the traditional stuff with baseball. I think it's got a lot more tradition than the other major professional sports. But one thing I as a fan, I kind of like the in sports, and you see it a lot more so in like basketball and football, is like trash talk.
Mm-hmm.
And in baseball, I feel like the bat flip is it's a form of trash talk. But it is really seen as quite a no-no in baseball, showing up the pitcher. Andy, again, former pitcher, guy hits a home run off you, he does the bat flip. What's going through your head?
Yeah, I'm pretty pissed. And I'll tell you just, pre-Korea and post-Korea, I will start with. I always felt like, anybody that knows me, I'm not a very flashy kind of guy. So I'm out there, I strike you out, I'm not doing anything. I walk off the mound, walk back to the dugout. I'm not showing anybody up. I'm just doing my job. They can do little things to celebrate hitting a home run. I get it. Like, you did something very cool and helped your team out. That's great. But yeah, if you're throwing your bat way up in the air, that's more of a look at me, like, whatever you want to say about that. So I never liked that at all. And yes, I would probably throw at you, and I probably have in the past. But Korea is a whole different story.
Okay.
Those guys bat flip everything, even if it's a pop fly. They make solid contact. The bat's flying, and it took me a long time to just wrap my head around. Like, it's not a show off thing. I don't know. It's different with them, and for some reason, and it took me a long time to kind of be okay with that and laugh at. I mean, it was comical, some of the stuff they would do,
especially on an out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fly, like, no doubt foul ball down the line, but he crushed it. I mean, this is like 100 feet foul, and he's throwing his bat way up in the air. So yeah, it just I learned to kind of laugh at it and let it go. So
well, that kind of reminds me of Andy and I are in the same fantasy football league. We got a group text with our fantasy football league, and someone had posted a video of Dominican Republic League or Dominican Republic baseball. Someone flipping their bat, And I think I replied, "Oh, is that guy going to get hit next at bat?" And I think you then replied, "Not in the Dominican Republic." So, is it more, outside of Major League Baseball and all these other, high level leagues across around the world? Is it more accepted?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's becoming more accepted in the States.
Sure.
I think it's definitely changed, and it's been talked about a lot more. Why can't these guys have fun? Or this is us having fun, and it's more entertainment.
Sure.
Fans love it. So that's it's just something I think you're going to have pitchers and people are going to have to get over. I think there'll always be players that don't do it and pitchers who don't like it, but I think it's becoming a little bit more acceptable. And but yeah, I think other leagues, Dominican, Venezuela, they're a little bit more flashy and entertaining that way, and which is great as long as you're not on the mound, probably. But I think a lot of pitchers celebrate a lot more, and so yeah, it's just the way they do it, and Korea kind of the same way. So it is a little bit more acceptable outside of the States, I guess.
Okay.
But like I said, I think it's gotten more and more acceptable and popular here over the last few years.
Chris, any other unwritten rules that are kind of
not that really, come to mind. I mean, there's a lot of trash talking in baseball, though.
you just don't see it?
You don't see
because
it.
the guys aren't face to face like they are in other sports,
right? And there's different things people do. There's a lot of cleating that goes on. Players will running to first base. They'll step on the ankle of the first baseman on purpose, or they'll slide in with their cleats turned a certain way to try to, and pitchers, they'll throw high and inside a lot to try to send a message sometimes. So, but yeah, some of that is, controllable by the coach, I think, as well. But yeah, there's a lot of that goes on that you don't really see a whole lot or hear about a whole lot.
All right, so let's look ahead then. Further down this season. First of all, Astros are the reigning World Series champions.
Mm-hmm.
They got a shot at repeating.
I think so. Altuve's hurt for 6 weeks.
Okay.
He got hurt in the World Baseball Classic, so that definitely hurts. They also lost Verlander. He went to the Mets.
Yeah.
I think he's on the DL right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a long season, obviously, and it's usually a battle of pitching staffs and which pitching staff can stay the healthiest.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Baseball is so hard to predict because I think more so in baseball than the other major sports is the cliche of, on any given day, anyone can beat anyone. And I think that's really more so true in baseball than the other sports. There's so many things that go into it. It's a 162 game season. If you're going to win the World Series, you got to, be healthy a majority of that season, and certainly be healthy in the playoffs. Speaking of the Astros, Detroit Tigers have just taken 2 back-to-back games from the Astros.
Any given day.
On any given day. So that's not a good look for the chances of the Astros repeating. But and speaking of the Tigers, I believe this is Miguel Cabrera's last season.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Andy, if you're managing the ball club, the Detroit Tigers, how are you kind of managing Miguel Cabrera's farewell tour here?
Well, I think I would have had a sit down with Miguel and asked him exactly how he wants to approach the season.
Sure.
I mean, he's
Earned that.
had a phenomenal career. He's been with the Tigers for a long time now, so he's been the face of the franchise for the last, decade, 15 years, whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, I've heard that he doesn't want any fanfare.
Sure.
You mentioned Ernie Harwell earlier, and that was Ernie's last year when I was in the big leagues with the Tigers. So I got to witness a lot of, a lot of the team's before the game gave him gifts, or they had some sort of video or tribute to Ernie, which was cool to see, obviously. And I've seen that with other players, recently, like Derek Jeter and Pujols, those guys. So, but it sounds like Miguel doesn't necessarily want all that, which I would have to respect, and I'm sure he'll get a lot of it because he's been such a good player and he's well respected around the league. So, as far as playing time, and obviously he's missed some time and been a little more, had some injuries over the last few years. So, however he wants to go out and as much as he wants to play, I would put him in the lineup whenever he wanted. Obviously, fans are going to want to come and see him. I would just, have a meeting with him, see what he wants to do, and do my best to make that happen.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There's, Chris, the opposite side of the coin. I don't know what you think of it. This, the Tigers are, let's be real, not gonna make the playoffs. This is his last year, and obviously you're trying to get better for next year, the years to come, where you can now be a playoff contender. On days where they do throw out Cabrera into the lineup, is he, is it a negative in that he's taken away some at bats from somebody who you're going to be relying on in the future?
I think his role is primarily a DH now. So, and I kind of look at it this way: who in the Tigers organization is ever going to give you a better at bat than Miguel Cabrera, even at this age?
Yeah,
so
100%.
I would probably say he's better than anybody else we could put in at that point to DH. So I think, from a position standpoint, he used to start it out, playing third, then he goes to first. They've got guys there now they're trying to develop. So I don't think that's taking too much time away. I think when Miguel Cabrera retires, they'll transition somebody, probably a veteran player, into that DH role. That seems to be what that DH is for nowadays. So I don't think it's, again, I look at it like, I hear that argument, but I don't know who on the Tigers is going to give you a better at bat.
Oh, yeah,
or
100%.
And even if Miguel's not having success, he's one of the smartest hitters. So just him seeing a pitcher, going back in the dugout, talking to the younger guys about what he saw, is going to help those guys out tremendously.
Yeah.
So,
well, and again, the Tigers are nowhere near playoff contender in the American League. Who do you like to maybe come out of the American League this year and represent the American League in the World Series?
Yeah, Houston is definitely up there. I never count Boston out, or I guess New York for that matter, but really Boston. I like Boston, but I would say Houston. I think the White Sox, if they can stay healthy, could be a surprise team this year. So,
Yeah, you always have to look at the Astros. They've had a very good run over the last, however many years. It seems like they're always in the mix. Yankees, obviously, Judge and Stanton already off to a hot start. That's a good sign if those guys can stay healthy. Obviously, their lineup is crazy good. And Garrett Cole is one of the best pitchers in the game. And, if they need somebody at midway point, they're going to go out and get somebody for whoever they need. And I enjoyed the Mariners' run last year. I think Rodriguez, the outfielder, is really fun to watch. He's an up-and-coming star. So, I guess I would love to see the Angels, for whatever reason, they can't put it together.
Yeah.
Arguably the two best players in baseball. So I'd like to see Ohtani in playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't know. You guys watch the WBC at all?
I didn't really watch any, but I followed it. Along.
That was incredible, and it was so much fun to watch. And I think that was such a cool thing that they kind of developed and it's turned into. And I think, it was a great decision by baseball to do that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's during spring training. It's the only time it can be, I think.
Okay.
But that would be the one negative thing. But it was incredible. Some incredible games. It was really fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Well, okay, and then what about Andy in the NL? National League?
Let's see. The Phillies obviously made it last year. They have a couple of injuries. Bryce Harper's hurt. They got Trey Turner, who's an MVP candidate, I would say. And speaking of the WBC, he was on fire. He was really fun to watch. I would say Philly's got to be up there. I love San Diego. I have a former teammate who's on the team, so I'm rooting for them because of that. But they've got a really good lineup. They've acquired a lot of really good players over the last few years, and solid rotation, and probably the best closer in the game right now. So,
Chris, who you got coming out of the NL?
I love San Diego as well. I've liked them for the last few years, like Andy. I also always like Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah. They always seem to be there. They're a very well-run organization. They always have good pitching, and they've got a lot of young talent now in the field to surround the pitching. So I like Atlanta as well. They always seem to be pretty balanced. So
the Dodgers obviously are kind of going to be in the mix as well.
But, All right. So who are we thinking might win the World Series this year then?
I think if they stay healthy, I think it'll be San Diego.
Okay.
That's what I would hope.
Okay.
That's a tough call. Yeah, I hope the Padres. I think the Yankees would make it if I were to have to make a prediction.
Okay.
But I would say San Diego, New York for the World Series, and hopefully the Padres would.
All right, guys. Well, hey, I know you guys got to get out to practice here today. I really, really appreciate you guys joining the program. But there's a way I always end the podcast, and today this is a baseball podcast. I always end the program with a couple questions. First question, Chris, we'll start with you.
Okay.
Your 5 favorite baseball players of all time.
Wow. Okay. So I've got kind of covering a couple of different generations here, or at least decades, I should say. Cal Ripken.
Okay.
Tony Gwynn. Tony Gwynn was probably my favorite hitter of all time.
Yeah.
Yadier Molina.
Okay.
He's probably, in the last 10 years, my favorite player. He's just an incredible baseball player. I have Kirk Gibson, old Tiger.
Yep.
First couple of games I ever went to when I was like 8 or 9, Kirk Gibson had walk-off hits to win the game, so you instantly gravitate towards him.
Your Uncle Craig will like that one.
He had a certain energy to him, we'll say. And then growing up, I always liked Eric Davis for some reason for the Reds. So so those are what I listed.
Andy, your 5 favorite baseball players of all time.
All time. Well, my favorite player growing up was Wade Boggs from the Red Sox and later the Yankees. Great hitter. Great mustache. Tom Glavine from the Braves was, as I was getting into high school and pro ball, I kind of gravitated towards him. I thought I threw somewhat similar, just not an overpowering fastball, good changeup, change speeds.
Left-handed.
Yeah, left-handed. It was fun to watch. Rick Ankiel, who had a very short pitching career, but was phenomenal pitcher, and would run to the TV anytime he was pitching. And then later on, obviously became an outfielder in the big leagues, which is an incredible feat. To be like, I'm just going to be an outfielder now.
Mm-hmm.
So read his book, which is really interesting too. Any readers out there? Tony Gwynn also made my list. Unbelievable hitter.
That's why we like the Padres.
Yeah, Mr. Padre.
Yeah.
Yeah, just unbelievable hitter, just great baseball player, great for the game. Love to just watch him play and have fun. And I thought I should throw one current player, Jacob deGrom.
Okay.
He's probably the best pitcher I've seen. Throws 99 to 100 and can put it exactly where he wants. If he can stay healthy, I would have a hard time saying he's not going to win the Cy Young every year. But yeah, so those are my 5.
All right, and then Chris, 5 favorite baseball movies.
All right, so number 1, by a long shot, is The Natural.
Yes.
Robert Redford. I think Andy and I wore out 2 VHS tapes growing up with that one. 8 Men Out, great one. Bull Durham. Sandlot.
Yeah.
Also a favorite of my kids growing up. And Major League.
Yes. Andy.
All right. A lot of repeats. Sorry. Natural. Yes, is my number 1. Yes, just very nostalgic. And great ending, obviously. Which I read the book in high school, and the ending is different.
Really? I didn't even know there was a book.
I was very confused by that.
I didn't even know there was a book. How does it end in the book?
He strikes out.
No way.
Yeah.
Well,
that's completely different.
It is.
Yeah. Crazy. Sandlot also. Field of Dreams. I put Mr. Baseball.
Yeah.
Which is very kind of accurate. A lot of it's very accurate. Those who haven't seen it, Tom Selleck goes over to Japan to play baseball, and a lot of those. It's from the 80s, but a lot of those I found to be true. So, and then Bull Durham I found is kind of more of a comedy baseball. A lot of funny stuff, a lot of things that are true, a lot of overblown things.
Sure,
but good movie.
Well, hey, guys, I'm 100% with you guys on The Natural. Well, I like both of this. The Natural, for me, not only is my favorite baseball movie, might be one of my favorite movies, period.
Mm-hmm.
There is a movie that neither of you guys mentioned, and this movie is a movie that I feel like I watched at least with Andy a million times when we were kids, and that was Tiger Town.
Oh, boy. Roy Schneider?
Yes, Roy Schneider.
Yeah. Jaws.
Yeah.
Yes. Roy Schneider. Yes, I was going to bring up from Jaws.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Amity police chief now is the right fielder for the Detroit. I was so confused when I was 9. I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys. Hey, one more question, more specific. It's going to be a different question for each of you.
Yep.
Chris is a huge Chicago Bears fan.
Yep.
Chris, who are your 5 favorite Chicago Bears of all time?
Of all time? Well, number 1 for sure is Walter Payton.
Yeah.
He just ran with an intensity. He was incredible. He was my favorite. The rest of the group, kind of in no particular order. Lance Briggs, linebacker. Devin Hester was a kick returner, punt returner. Mike Brown used to play safety for the Bears in the early 2000s. And probably my second favorite Bear of all time was Jim McMahon. I love Jim McMahon.
Yeah, classic.
Yep.
And then, Andy, your question, the 5 coolest baseball stadiums that you have pitched in.
All right. I'll start from number 5.
Okay. Oh, you ranked it. Awesome.
Kind of,
yeah.
Toledo Mud Hens, and it's more to do with, like I was saying earlier, the atmosphere. My first year there was really cool. It's not like a particularly amazingly set up stadium, but it's a very nice stadium.
They're the best restaurant in stadium too, don't they? Because you can sit in the restaurant watching the game.
Well,
and they've added a lot of really big screen.
Cool.
It's
I thought it was kind of cool how it was set up there in the city. But speaking of food, I mean, minor league baseball parks have amazing food.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Frisco, Texas. It's a AA for the Rangers. It's like Dr. Pepper Stadium or something like that. It was a very architecturally cool stadium to play in. They actually messed up and forgot to put the bullpens in. So they are in the middle of the seats, like up. You have to like go up the staircase, and there's people walking below you.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's
it's really
crazy.
weird, but ended up being kind of cool. So that is probably number 4. Portland, Oregon. They no longer have a team there, but it was the Portland Beavers. Kind of a cool stadium. I think they were playing Major League Soccer there, maybe not. I don't know. But it's an older stadium, kind of sunk down into the city. It was just a really cool atmosphere there as well. Jim Schill Stadium in Seoul, which I believe Chris
Yep.
at.
Yep.
That's
that's really
Olympic Stadium.
Yep.
That they built for this old Olympics in
Yep.
'88. Great atmosphere. They have 2 teams in Seoul that share the stadium, and they have the biggest fan bases. So it's usually always packed when you play them. And I always selfishly pitch very well there, so I really liked it.
Yeah.
And then number 1 was Old Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, it's gotta be
That was just to think of all the players that have played there and
incredible.
having a chance to pitch those.
I wanted to ask you, I don't know if I ever asked you this before. Did you ever pitch in the stadium in Buffalo where The Natural was filmed? Because that was filmed in the stadium in Buffalo.
I don't think so. Their stadium there was a little newer.
Okay.
But I remember hearing about it, and maybe that it's still standing, but I never.
Oh, okay.
I always wondered. I'm glad you brought that up because I always wondered what stadium that was.
It was a minor league stadium in Buffalo.
It was huge though. Well, the movie made it look huge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It probably wasn't all the outfield suites.
Yeah.
Whatever they had. So.
All right, guys. Well, I am going to be tuning into The Natural probably later today. Hey, I know you guys got to get to practice.
Yep.
Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Andy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And again, we'll get Andy back to dive more into his baseball career. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Please subscribe to the Attack the Rack YouTube channel and hit the notification bell so you are updated every time we post. Also, please like, comment, and share.